Hey everyone, today I thought that I might talk about how I deal with my recoil anticipation. Recoil anticipation is something that I constantly struggle with when I shoot. It takes the form of, I guess, a flinch where, I start shooting low and left. But it also takes the form of an internal thing. Someone who's watching me can maybe see what I may or may not be doing that they're catching, like if I'm flinching or slightly dropping my shot as I shoot, but they don't know what's going on the inside. And that's really where it all stems from. Sometimes when I go shooting, I feel a little nervous. And I think it's more so excitement because I'm finally getting to shoot for the week, because I can only go once a week and it's that time and I get to shoot. So there's a little bit of like anticipation of just like how well I'm going to do and just doing it and just the environment, if there's other people shooting, if there's someone with a shotgun going off, which happens more frequently than it used to. But it starts in the chest, like in my stomach and in my chest. And it's just this the only way to just call it, the only thing to name it is it's a growing anticipation as the shot's going to break. And I have to constantly quell that down through breathing and just a headspace, like adjusting my thinking in that don't worry about it, don't think about it, just chill, calm down, keep the sights in alignment on where I want to shoot, maintain the sight picture, and then pull the trigger, but without really acknowledging that the trigger's being pulled. Like focus more on the sights than on the trigger pull. And then the gun will go off. And usually if I can do that successfully, the round will hit exactly where I was aiming. When I'm not so successful at that, you will start to see the low and the left hits. And it's basically a head game. It's a mind and body game that I have to constantly struggle with when I shoot. Other ways that I try and deal with it, other than breathing and just like meditation, in a sense, for lack of a better term, just like getting in the right headspace, a little bit of exercising some mental control, some body control, so that I'm not feeling the anxiety or the anticipation shooting, and just going at it with a really relaxed mindset and a relaxed body. But another way I try and accomplish this is I will dry fire in between shooting. So I will shoot 5 live rounds and then maybe dry fire maybe 5 times. And what this does is it kind of keeps me in the headspace that I am shooting, for the most part, that I am shooting an empty gun. So with that feeling, with that rhythm of shooting an empty gun, I'm more successful at landing my shots. And I do 5 live shots and then 5 dry fire because roughly when you start to get into the 5, when you get beyond 5 in a row, that's when your body starts to react. Sometimes it's a little earlier than that. Sometimes after 3 shots, your body might start reacting to the gun going off and to the everything about shooting. Your body will start making adjustments for it. And it just becomes this vicious circle that you constantly have to kind of get yourself out of to accomplish the task of landing the shots where you want them to go. So I have worse and better days when it comes to dealing with recoil anticipation. Just yesterday I went shooting, and after doing, I've been shooting 40 Smith & Wesson, and I'm still getting used to that. It's got a lot more kick to it. It's a bigger round than 9mm. So it definitely causes my body to react more to that because it's a more powerful round. So when I go to a 9mm, my body is really amped up for the 40. So when the 9 goes off, it's no big deal. But if I'm able to quell that anticipation, and I have, like I'm shooting the CZ, for example, yesterday, at 10 yards, I got a really nice group of 5 rounds that was like an inch in diameter. Like, I was really thrilled with that one. They were just so close together that they created a much larger hole. And that was just an honest sequence of shots. And it was great. I had everything under control. My grip was good. My stance was good. My headspace was good. And I just nailed all those shots. And it was nice to reassure myself that, yes, I can shoot when everything is under control. Because a lot of it's a head game. Trying to not, because if head game being, if you shoot at a long distance, you're more likely to get a bigger spread. Your group isn't going to be as tight. Getting a nice 1-inch group at 10 yards really made me feel good. But you move that to 15, you move that to 25, and things are going to get a little bit more spread out. That, and at those distances, it starts to become more difficult to make sure that you're even aiming at exactly the same spot, just because of perspective and your sight picture being almost as big, if not bigger, than the target that you're trying to aim for. So it starts to become difficult, to maintain that same spot that you're aiming at. Every time you recover from a shot, the muzzle flips a little, you come back, get your sight picture, you're not always in the same spot, and it's translates into where your rounds land. So another thing I will often do is I'll only shoot at like 5 yards or 7 yards, just to kind of start my day out, build up some confidence, get the rhythm down. The closer target is a bigger target, so the ratio between, or your perspective between your sight picture and your target is a little bit more easier to aim on the same spot every time, because you're dealing with a bigger surface area, visually speaking. And that helps with headspace, when you start landing those shots, and it helps with your confidence, and it gets the nervousness of like, hey, I'm going to start shooting now. Like, yay, I'm going to be shooting. It starts to quell that nervousness, that anticipation of just general excitement of shooting, because I enjoy shooting. And you start doing well in the beginning, then it calms everything down, and I'm able to push the target out further and still get decent results and still feel good about the session for the day. But that's every time I go shooting, it's a struggle. Now, I think some guns maybe exacerbate recoil anticipation. I think my Glocks tend to exacerbate recoil anticipation. And that's just because I don't think my Glocks tend to be well balanced. Like I have a 34, and it's very top and front heavy. That's just how it feels to me. So it doesn't handle recoil as well as like my CZ Shadow 2 does. No kidding, right? The CZ Shadow 2 is like 3 pounds loaded. It's a hefty gun. It's meant for competition. It's meant to deal with that recoil, and it does it just fine. It does it better than the Glock does. Now, when I have good moments with shooting with the Glock, I'm putting those rounds exactly where I want them to go. But it has that tendency to trigger my recoil anticipation a little bit more. Most of my early time shooting, since I started shooting, was with a Glock. And I kind of wish it hadn't been, but I just didn't know any better. This Glock was, when I started searching for guns, doing a little bit of research, Glock came up, and I was like, yes, I'm going to get a Glock. That sounds good. Okay. And I like my Glocks, but they're their own thing. They're definitely, it's a little bit different to shoot a Glock. So, recoil anticipation, it's a constant struggle. It deals with just general anxiety issues, if you have that, nervousness, any kind of excitement, confidence or lack of confidence. Like, all of this stuff can kind of feed into reacting more to a gun going off as you're shooting, and that just causes your shots to not land where you want them to go, and then it just further incites that sensation of like, oh, what the fuck is going on, and all that kind of shit. And now I just feel like I'm starting to ramble a little bit more than usual, but so dealing with recoil anticipation, it's a constant game of adjusting your headspace, calming your body down, and maybe tricking yourself into shooting an empty gun. Combining live fire with dry fire, and then eventually you would just have to you would do live fire more often than having to do a mix of both. So, but the important thing is to shoot regularly. Keep going and working at it, working at your fundamentals, and praise your successes in shooting. Learn from your failures. So, I hope this helps.